It's that time of year once again. The Game Awards are back on December the 7th, and nominees have been announced. And of course, with that, voting starts now. You can cast your votes for every category under the sun, and there are plenty of them. 31, in fact, I think awards are up for grabs this year. But if you haven't heard of the Game Awards before, it is kind of a blend of an actual award show, as the name suggests, where we celebrate the coolest games of the year and we honor the developers that help make them happen. But it's also kind of like a midpoint for Summer Game Fest, where, yes, we have the big annual conference, if you will, showing off all the next big games, but then the Game Awards has traditionally become more and more of a big part of the marketing cycle. It's become a bigger part of how people debut their games, and I think that's really cool. Just as an example, Microsoft debuted the entire Xbox Series X and S generation at this event, and that's typically a big E3 or Summer Game Fest type of announcement, so that was a pretty big get for the Game Awards, I would say, but that just shows how big the announcements could be during this year's show. And I don't think we're going to be getting the Nintendo Switch 2 announcement here, but you're probably going to be getting stuff like Grand Theft Auto 6, which in a lot of ways is probably just as significant. But the news itself will be discussed. I'll be making plenty of videos on stuff that comes out of the Game Awards. Let's talk about the nominees. And before I dive into voting today, let's check out the categories. This is everything that's up for grabs. Game of the year, of course, but you have best game direction, best narrative, best art direction, best score and music, lots of stuff like that all the way down. And of course, your various categories are pretty much representing the indie game community, the action RPGs, the mobile game, VR, AR, everything under the sun is covered here. But I'm going to be casting my votes based on what I think is going to win, not necessarily my own personal opinion. Jumping in real quick, I'm editing this video right now, and I did not do that at all. I started off with what I thought was going to win, and then kind of evolved throughout the video into just placing my votes, which I guess is kind of how this whole thing is intended to go. So as you're watching this, just know that I'm just placing votes, having fun with it. That's kind of the way it's meant to be. So starting things off, Game of the Year, recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. We have Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Tears of the Kingdom. I made a video saying that I don't think Resident Evil 4 should be eligible for this, and people have left their comments. People have shared that I am wrong. Whatever you want to think, that's perfectly fine. In my opinion, Resident Evil 4 is a remake, and I think that remakes should have their own category. If Dead Space Remake didn't get a Game of the Year nomination, I don't know if Resident Evil 4 should. I think they should all be in their own little category over there. Throw Metroid Prime Remastered, RE4, Dead Space, whatever else got remade this year, and have them duke it out. But I think that in a year where we've had games like Diablo 4, Hogwarts Legacy, Starfield, so many more games that could have been considered here, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, those would have all been net new games, brand new stuff. And Resident Evil 4 is kind of an older game from 2005 with a fresh coat of paint that's been rebuilt. I get the effort, I understand. But nonetheless, it is nominated for Game of the Year. Out of all of these, I think Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be the one to get it. I think that's going to be the one that brings it home, just because of how much it did unexpectedly. It came out of left field. People did not expect Baldur's Gate 3 to land and make the impact that it did, but I mean, this was kind of like a cultural moment. This is a very deep RPG with very in-depth systems, the dialogue options, the character building, the story that's told. People love this game, and I think that it's definitely going to be a shoo-in for Game of the Year, but equally for the general crowd, the general gaming population, Tears of the Kingdom probably would get it. For the general 20s to 30s regular dude that goes and hangs out at GameStop, Spider-Man 2, totally a valid choice, things like that. Alan Wake 2, I think, is also a very good nomination, because this game is telling a story unlike any other. It is truly one of the most cinematic games I've ever seen, but I still think Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be the one that brings it home. Moving on, Best Game Direction, awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. The nominees are Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Tears of the Kingdom. Looking at this list, you almost think that they got a glitch on the website. It's pretty much the exact same nominees. For this one, in my opinion, Alan Wake 2 gets that every day of the week. But see, now I'm going against myself. What are the critics going to vote for? Because this is my personal vote. Best Game Direction. You know what? I'm going to stick it. I think that Alan Wake 2 is still going to take that home. I think it could take that home just because it is like a movie. And when you sit down to play Alan Wake 2, you're being guided through this experience, and the gameplay is good. It is still there, but it really is about the story that's being told and how everything is pieced together. And I think with the game direction, best creative vision and innovation in game direction and design, I mean, you got your dual reality situation in Alan Wake 2, the investigation boards and the mind place and the dark place, stuff like that. Lots to appreciate there and recognize in Alan Wake 2, I think. Equally said, all of these are valid picks. I don't know that Tears of the Kingdom can necessarily get best. I mean, creative vision and innovation in game direction and design, game design. Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom could totally be. All of these are great. Whatever you vote, you're probably right. My pick is Alan Wake 2. Best Narrative for outstanding storytelling and narrative development in a game: Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, Final Fantasy 16, and Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Once again, I think for me, Alan Wake 2 is going to get it just because of the story that's being told here. I think with Marvel's Spider-Man 2, it's a superhero game. I have not played it. It's a superhero game. You kind of know what you're going to be getting. Final Fantasy 16, these stories are always fine. Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, it's cool that this is nominated, I think, just because it is a big DLC. But they have fleshed out a hugely new story. But Alan Wake 2 is just such a deep story that builds on the foundation from 13 years ago and does it in a way that not only respects the source material, but that also makes it more mature, something that feels more engaging for people that played it 13 years ago when they were like 15 and now they're 28 and they're diving back in, and it feels like it's grown up a good bit. So it's cool to see that. And then, of course, Baldur's Gate 3 also valid for Best Narrative as well. But Alan Wake 2 is going to be the one that gets it from me. Best Art Direction: Alan Wake 2, Hi-Fi Rush, Lies of P, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Best Art Direction for outstanding creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation. Artistic design and animation, I think it's got to go to Lies of P for me. Just because for Lies of P, it kind of breaks out of the mold in a lot of ways. It takes some Bloodborne, takes the lore of Pinocchio, and throws it into its own game. And I think that Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a Super Mario game. And there are new elements to it that make it stand out and feel like a fresh 2D Mario. Tears of the Kingdom always has great direction. Alan Wake 2, also an equally good pick. Hi-Fi Rush, phenomenal from Tango Gameworks. They've done some really cool stuff there. But as far as stylistic approach goes, creativity in the mix there as well, Lies of P is going to be the one that gets my pick. Best Score and Music for outstanding music, inclusive of score, original song, and or licensed soundtrack: Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16, Hi-Fi Rush, and Tears of the Kingdom. Hi-Fi Rush is an easy pick to choose, and I'm not saying that I am, but it's a game centered around the music, and it's got really good music in it, don't get me wrong. It really fits the vibe. Overall, I don't think it's going to be Alan Wake 2 for me. Baldur's Gate 3, have not heard the music that much, so I can't really vote for that. Tears of the Kingdom has a really, really good soundtrack. Zelda music always slaps. Let's not mince words. It's always great. I think I'm going to pick Tears of the Kingdom. I think I'm going to go with that. Next up, Best Audio Design, recognizing the best in-game audio and sound design. And this is one that is a really important category for me because when a game has good sound, it just makes it so much better. And Dead Space is one that does it really well that's on this list. But this is recognizing the best in-game audio and sound design: Alan Wake 2, Dead Space, Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel's Spider-Man, and Resident Evil 4. I think that because of the tension that's being built through the audio, Dead Space is going to have to be the one that gets it for me, just because there are moments where you hear stuff behind you, in front of you, above you, things like that, that are squelching and making gross little noises that make it so much more encompassing, so much more engaging when you're sitting down to actually play this game. So Dead Space is going to be the one that gets it from me. Best Performance, awarded to an individual for voice-over acting, motion, and or performance capture. We have Ben Starr from Final Fantasy 16, Cameron Monaghan from Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Idris Elba from Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, Melanie Libbard from Alan Wake 2, Neil Newbun from Baldur's Gate 3, and Yuri Lowenthal from Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Lots of good picks here, lots of good acting in this year's games. And as games get more cinematic, you get higher, more notable actors to jump in and play these roles, like Cal Kestis for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Cameron Monaghan absolutely kills it. He killed it in the original, killed it in Star Wars Jedi Survivor as well. For me, I think that Melanie Libbert is going to take it home for me from Alan Wake 2, just because it is such a good performance, and she pairs really well with Alan Wake in the game. And I think that it shows a really, really great performance. It is just a phenomenal game. If you have not played it, you absolutely should, but her performance is really, really impressive stuff. Next up, a loading screen. Then, innovation and accessibility, recognizing software and or hardware that is pushing the medium forward by adding features, technology, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience, Diablo 4, Forza Motorsport, Hi-Fi Rush, Spider-Man 2, Mortal Kombat 1, and Street Fighter 6. Across all of these, I can't speak to the accessibility. I appreciate these features being in the games. More people playing more games is always the way to go. I just don't think that I can vote for this comfortably because I don't know how many accessibility features went in, but I encourage you, go out, find some of the people in the community that are advocates for these accessibility tools and find out what they voted for to align with that and figure out which game did it the best. But I appreciate the fact that there are so many big AAA name nominees on this list, and that shows a really cool attention that's being paid to bringing more people in, no matter their skill level, ability, whatever their situation might be. Giving them the tools they need to play these games is something I'll always advocate for. That's super cool. Games for Impact, for a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. A Space for the Unbound, Chance of Sonar, Goodbye Volcano High, Chia, Terra Nil, and Venba. Again, not a game or not a category that I played any of the games in. I know I've heard of Goodbye Volcano High. I've heard of Venba. I've heard good things about both of those. I've not heard of any of the other games, so I'm going to decline on that one. Best Ongoing Game, awarded to a game for best outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. Apex Legends, Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy 16, Fortnite, or Genshin Impact. This is a weird category because I don't know why Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy 16 are in here. Because if you're talking about best ongoing games, typically this is synonymous with best live service game. And so that would be Apex Legends, Fortnite, Genshin, whatever, Warzone even could be thrown in there. Probably not the best. But it's weird to see a AAA game that just gets DLC thrown in there. For instance, I would have seen Final Fantasy 14. Actually, no, it is Final Fantasy 14. I just totally misread that. Oh, well, how about that? Anyways, Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't make sense in this category. So Apex Legends, Fortnite, Genshin Impact makes sense. I'm ranting at this point. Best ongoing game, I think, would probably end up being Fortnite just because of how much they continue to bring. Now we have Fortnite OG kicking it back to the older seasons to give them time to make content for the newer seasons. I think this is going to be the one that gets it from me. A lot of confusion in that category. I apologize for that. Next up on the roster, Best Community Support, recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, and responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity and game updates and patches. This is one that's gotten a lot of controversy. Also, #@ presented by Discord. This is one that's gotten a lot of controversy because over at Bungie, they just laid off a lot of the staff and a lot of community management people over there. So it's kind of an awkward spot to see them nominated for this kind of award. Not to say they don't necessarily deserve it, because they've continued to be vocal with their community and work with them through things and keep people apprised and deliver updates. But it's a really bad look when you've laid off a lot of the people that help do this work, I think is the point that I'm trying to make. But best community support is Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy 14, and No Man's Sky. For community support, I think it's going to have to go to inclusive of social media activity and game updates and patches. I think that Cyberpunk 2077 is the one that's going to have to get that one because they've done so much through the years. They have continuously come back, tried to make the game better and better. They've added more patches. They pretty much rebuilt it from the ground up. And I think that deserves some recognition on top of delivering an awesome DLC with Phantom Liberty. They got really, really good reviews pretty much across the board. So for me, best community support, Cyberpunk 2077, and we'll see where the future goes. I would assume it's probably starting to wind down, but cool to see that they've fixed the game entirely. Best independent game for outstanding creative and technical achievement in a game made outside the traditional publisher system. We have Cocoon, Dave the Diver, Dredge, Sea of Stars, and Viewfinder. It's been a crazy year for indie games. Even just looking at these are awesome games. They've all gotten their stars through the months. They've all really been well received. For me, my personal pick on this list would be Cocoon. I played it on Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, you should play Cocoon. It is such a complex game that simplifies the complexities down to where it's pretty digestible. It's pretty easy to play through. I played through it in about a week or so, just playing up, picking casually, or picking it up and playing casually an hour or two every night. I've heard great things about Dave the Diver. Dredge, I've heard great things about as well. Out of all of these, though, I think Sea of Stars is the one that's going to have to take home the prize here because of the depth of the game, the quality of the game, the way they follow the inspiration they had coming from games like Chrono Trigger back in the day to really create something special. So for me, Sea of Stars is the one that gets the best independent game of the year. Best debut indie game. Slightly different category. For the best debut game created by a new independent studio, we have Cocoon, Dredge, Pizza Tower, Vinba, and Viewfinder. Never heard of Pizza Tower. I should probably look up Pizza Tower. For me, out of all of these, definitely going to be Cocoon. And this is one coming from people that have worked on games like Limbo previously, so it has that same kind of vibe. But Cocoon, such a good indie game. Really happy to see it nominated here on this list. And again, if you haven't played it, it is on Game Pass. You should absolutely go. Find time to check it out. Even if you go back in December or January when things slow down, would be a really good time to do that. Best mobile game, Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, Hello Kitty Island Adventure, Honkai Star Rail, Monster Hunter Now, and Terra Nil. Have not played any of these, so I can't really vote, but if I was to vote for one, I've watched a little bit of gameplay of Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. Looks pretty good, I guess. I don't know. Not a mobile gaming guy typically, but hey, cast your vote over at thegameawards.com. Best VR and AR for the best game experience playable in a virtual or augmented reality, irrespective of platform. Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Humanity, Resident Evil Village VR mode, and Synapse. Once again, not one that I've spent any time with. If I had to vote for any of these, just my personal opinion, it would probably end up being something that was created for VR, not necessarily around VR. Not to say that any of these games are better than another, but I feel like a game like Synapse, for example, that was developed for the VR experience to create something that was really encapsulating, I think that would probably get it from me. Again, I don't own a VR headset, haven't really played VR beyond like the first generation Oculus that I borrowed from my old job. So I'm sure all of these games are great. I know Humanity is very cool. Horizon Call of the Mountain also built for VR, but kind of built around PSVR too. I don't know. It's kind of a weird category, but yeah, let me know what VR game you would pick down below if you are somebody who is into that kind of thing. Best action game for the best game in the action genre focused primarily on combat. Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, Dead Island 2, Ghost Runner 2, Hi-Fi Rush, and Remnant 2. Very wide variety of games here, and I appreciate that. It makes it very difficult to pick the best action game, though. I think that for a lot of people, it's probably going to come down to Armored Core 6. Is that From Software just leveraging the name, and people know that Armored Core 6 is from Software, people really enjoy From Software games? Up for debate on that one. I think, though, that it's earned its spot. I think Armored Core 6 is probably going to win Best Action Game. I do think Dead Island 2 is a great pick as well. Very cool that they have redeemed that entire project and kind of brought it back from the dead in a lot of ways. You like the joke. There was a joke in there. But Ghost Runner 2 also, I think, is probably one that's earned some recognition here. I've heard good things, not necessarily crazy things about it, but cool to see it nominated. Hi-Fi Rush, man, what a game. It is a very special game, not necessarily one of my favorites of the year, but it is very, very cool, especially coming from Tango Gameworks, coming off of a game like Ghostwire Tokyo. And then Remnant 2, love this. Dark Souls with guns, I'm all about that. But I do think that Armored Core 6 is going to be the one that takes it home. Then, Next up, after the loading screen, Best Action Adventure Game. For the Best Action Adventure Game, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. Alan Wake 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, looking at the description, for the Best Action Adventure Game, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. Alan Wake 2 has puzzle solving. Combat, it has it. Not necessarily an award winner, I think. Marvel Spider-Man 2, totally valid there. Don't know about the puzzle side of that. Resident Evil 4, it is definitely an action-adventure game. Star Wars Jedi Survivor has all those elements. I think Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom gets the best action-adventure game because they have taken the original world of Hyrule. They've added a new layer on top of it. I think some below it as well. Not a game that I have played personally, but looking at it, the puzzles are always killer in a Zelda game. The traversal that they have now with the system where you literally build whatever kind of machines you want to move around the world, figure your own way, that kind of stuff. Dude, it's got to be that. It's got to be Tears of the Kingdom for that category. Again, all in my opinion. Best RPG for the best game designed with rich player character customization and progression, including massively multiplayer experiences. Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16, Lies of P, Sea of Stars, and Starfield. Best RPG. I think that out of all of these, it's got to be Baldur's Gate 3. And I could see the argument being made for Starfield. I could see the argument being made for Sea of Stars. I think Starfield is great. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that it's that good. I don't think that it's on the level of being the best RPG of the year in a year that's stacked with RPGs. Also kind of shocked that Diablo isn't on here. But nonetheless, Baldur's Gate 3, I think, is going to be the RPG of the year. Next up, Best Fighting Game for the best game designed primarily around head-to-head combat. I like the description of head-to-head combat. God of Rock, Mortal Kombat 1, Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2, Pocket Bravery, and Street Fighter 6. I think this really comes down to Street Fighter 6 or Mortal Kombat 1. Those are the big boys. I think that it ultimately will be Street Fighter 6 because of how well that game was received. It does new stuff pretty well. It's got that open world element to it, but it is also a very competent fighter. It builds on Street Fighter V in a lot of ways, came to Xbox as well, which is great to see. And so I think Mortal Kombat 1 is great, don't get me wrong, but I think for longevity, for looking at the 1,000-foot view of the entire franchise, Street Fighter 6 probably did it a little bit better. So Street Fighter 6 gets my vote for the best fighting game. Then, as we continue, Best Family Game for the best game appropriate for family play irrespective of genre or platform. Disney Illusion Island, Party Animals, Pikmin 4, Sonic Superstars, or Super Mario Bros. Wonder. It's got to be Super Mario Bros. Wonder, I think, just because that is such a welcoming family game. It's got a cool vibe to it. But beyond that, it's also got gameplay elements that make it accessible for everybody across the board, whether you're 80 or 8 or somewhere in between. You can definitely pick up this game and play it without having any kind of real issues. Also, by the way, they have demos at Target, GameStop, stuff like that. I put my time in on that, and it's a pretty good 2D Mario game. Best Sim and Strategy. Best game focused on real-time or turn-based simulation or strategy gameplay, irrespective of platform. Advanced Wars 1 and 2, Reboot Camp, City Skylines 2, Company of Heroes 3, Fire Emblem Engage, or Pikmin 4. What a strange variety. Sim or strategy? Advanced Wars 1 and 2 I get. City Skylines is a sim game. Company of Heroes 3 strategy, I suppose. Fire Emblem Engage. It just feels like City Skylines 2 is just kind of out here with Pikmin 4 in their own little world. But best sim or strategy game, I think that I'm either going to skip this category or vote for Advanced Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. I'm going to lean towards skipping it just because I haven't played any of these myself. I don't know enough about what is good right now to vote here. I know City Skylines 2, they put out a disclaimer ahead of the game's release, letting people know that it wouldn't run well on PCs. Yikes. And it also got delayed into 2024 on Xbox. So we'll see where that one ends up landing, but I think I'm going to go ahead and bow out of this one because I don't know enough to make an informed decision here. Best Sports and Racing Game. Now, this is one I'm excited to talk about. EA Sports FC24, F123, Forza Motorsport, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged, and The Crew Motorfest. I love the variety of these racing games, and this has been a kind of sleeper hit year for racing games, if you will. Forza Motorsport, great game, great sim. Hot Wheels Unleashed 2, Arcadey action, definitely not trying to go for the realism. It is a sequel to the Hot Wheels Unleashed game that came out a couple of years back, and this is more of that. Then the Crew Motorfest is Ubisoft's take on Forza Horizon. Even just looking at the key art here, I mean, this is Forza Horizon, pretty much 1-to-1. In my opinion, based on what I think is going to win, it's probably going to end up being FC24. I think they're going to take home the gold. My personal pick for the best sports and racing game is the Crew Motorfest, and Ubisoft did provide me a code for review. Want to throw that out there. Thank you to Ubisoft for giving me the code. But I sincerely believe that this is one of the most underrated racing games of this generation so far. There is so much to do here. There is so much content coming out week after week that it is on par with Forza Horizon. If you enjoy that kind of arcade game, you should go pick up this game, especially if it's going to be on sale for the holidays. I'm sure it's going to be a deep discount on Black Friday. Forza Motorsport also totally deserves some recognition. Really good sim. I'm just not a big sim guy. I played it for a couple of days after it launched on Game Pass, but I'm not the guy that's kind of made for. But I do think FC24 is probably going to be the one that wins. Just my personal opinion. Now, I will say, I'm going to go back. I'm going to cast my vote for the Crew Motorfest because I want my voice to be heard. I know I'm all over the place for this video. I said I was going to vote for what I think is going to win. We're not playing it that way. We're not playing it that way at all. Totally changing the rules midway through the video at the 29-minute mark. That's how long I've been recording. Video could be 12 minutes long and I've edited it down. I don't know. Best multiplayer game. For outstanding online multiplayer gameplay and design, including co-op and massively multiplayer experiences, irrespective of game genre or platform. We've got Baldur's Gate 3, Diablo 4, Party Animals, Street Fighter 6, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Best multiplayer. Baldur's Gate 3 does not necessarily strike me as a multiplayer game, even though I know it is. Diablo 4. I know that's a multiplayer game. I play it as a single-player game. Party Animals. That is a multiplayer game at its core. You can't play it as a single-player game, but it's meant to be played with friends. Street Fighter 6. No. Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I mean, like, I get why it's in here. I think the best multiplayer game... It's so weird that there's no, like... And again, this is me sharing my personal taste and opinions. There's no shooter on here. There's no, like... I know Modern Warfare 3 just came out, but like that equivalent of something where it's like people squad, I don't know, feels strange. I'm going to go with Diablo 4, I think. But I think that best multiplayer game, it's probably going to be Baldur's Gate 3. I just haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 and I haven't watched any of it. I just don't know if it's good enough. I mean, I'm sure that it is. I'll vote Baldur's Gate 3. I think that's what's going to win. I'll throw it out there. We'll throw that in there. Very confusing category, I think. Best Adaptation, recognizing outstanding creative work that faithfully and authentically adapts a video game to another entertainment medium. Castlevania Nocturne, Gran Turismo, The Last of Us, Super Mario Bros. Movie, and Twisted Metal. The Last of Us any day of the week. This is one of the best shows I've ever watched, period. Not even qualifying it as a video game show. It is so good. If you haven't watched it, it's almost worth getting HBO for. It is such a phenomenal show, and I can't wait for season 2. Really, really well done show. And it shows the importance of sticking to the source material. 343, Halo people. Maybe stick to the source material just a little bit more, in my humble opinion. Most anticipated game, recognizing an announced game that has demonstrably illustrated potential to push the gaming medium forward. What a weird way to describe most anticipated game. Not the one you're looking forward to the most, the one that has the potential to push the medium forward. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Hades 2, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Star Wars Outlaws, and Tekken 8. I think that, I mean, if we're going based on this description, potential to push the gaming medium forward, I feel like Hades 2 is the one that's probably going to be doing that. Maybe Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It looks really, really good. I don't imagine Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is going to be pushing things forward. Star Wars Outlaws it's a Star Wars game. Tekken 8 is a fighter game. I think Hades 2 is going to be the one that gets the most anticipated. But if people are voting based on their own personal opinions and the game they're most excited for, as this name kind of hints towards, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is probably going to be the one that takes that home. But we will see where things land. Content Creator of the Year. I haven't heard of any of these people. We have Iron Mouse, People Make Games, Quackity, Spreen, and Cypher, PK. Don't know who any of these people are, but hey, more power to you. Best of luck. Best esports game. For the game that has delivered the best overall esports experience to players, inclusive of tournaments, community support, and content updates, irrespective of genre or platform. Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, League of Legends, PUBG Mobile, or Valorant. Probably Counter-Strike 2, I'd imagine, because that's new. It seems like fans are really enjoying it. There was some hitback after they pretty much took away Counter-Strike Global Offensive and they threw Counter-Strike 2 in there. So I do think people enjoy that one more than the other ones, but the esports community is always kind of upset about something. So it could totally be off base on that one. Best esports athlete. Once again, I know none of these people, but more power to them. I wish them all the best. Also, where's the Halo representation? Where's the HCS representation here? I need more Halo in this category. Best esports team. Once again, where's the Halo representation here? FaZe, Optic, come on now. They've got some great Halo teams out there. But Evil Geniuses, Fnatic, Game & Gladiators, JD Gaming, and Team Vitality. I don't know anything about any of these people, so it's cool to see esports continuing to grow to the point that I don't know anybody. Once again, best esports coach, don't know any of these people, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. Christine Potter, Chi, I'm just going to say their name, Zonic, Goomba, Ecstasy, and Homie. If you vote for any of these people, congratulations. You watch probably too much esports. Is there really too much esports, though? Potentially in this category, the best esports event, League of Legends World Championship 2023, Blast TV Paris Major 2023, EVO 2023, the International Dota 2 Championships, and the Valorant Championships 2023. Once again, just gonna glaze on past that one. Why can't I go any further? As it turns out, this is the end. I've been using this vote cast thing in the top right corner with 22 out of 31. I thought we had 9 more categories to go. Turns out that I just skipped 9 for being uninformed and uncomfortable about voting. So, hey, we have reached the end of voting for the Game Awards, but if you want to go cast your votes, you can do so right now at thegameawards.com. Let me know what you think about my picks down below, my chaotic nominations, my chaotic votes, because some of them I think are going to win, some of them I think are the best of the best. We'll see what it all comes out to. It's all about good fun. But more than anything, let me know what you think about that game of the year. Should Resident Evil 4 be included in the nomination discussions? And which one would you pick to be your game of the year? But if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.